Warlocks, you might want to take your Starfire Protocol to the dry cleaners and get that thing nice and clean because it's time. This main build we'll be discussing today is pretty specific in that replacing one part means the build can fall apart. So we're not going to have as much experimenting as we did with Titan. This is in addition to the two other builds that I'm briefly going to mention at the end of the video. Their performance is driven by the exotic that you're using and not necessarily your aspect and fragment choices. Today's build focuses on Starfire Protocol, getting us multiple fusion grenades, which when thrown consecutively at the same target will get us an ignite proc for extra damage on top. We will then use Empowering Rift to get our grenades back, and then combine this with the Season of the Haunted mod Classy Restoration to make sure we stay healthy. This build will work without Classy Restoration, but you're not going to have that big boost of healing that you might really want to have. The aspects we'll be using are Heat Rises and Touch of Flame. Icarus Dash is cool and all, but it is purely a mobility-based play and it gives no other bonuses to this build at all. You could go without Heat Rises if you really want Icarus Dash, and I don't think you would end up losing a ton, but being able to farm melee energy simply from jumping is pretty nice to have versus the nothing that you get with Icarus Dash besides the actual dash. Touch of Flame makes our fusion grenades explode twice. That's kind of a big deal for this build. You're gonna need that. Let's talk stats. You would think that with the build focused on class ability and grenade usage, that we would want to stack all of the recovery and all of the discipline as possible. And yeah, you're right to a degree. Playing this build to perfection will actually not require those stats at all, but most people I imagine will want to have them as a backup because things are not going to go perfectly all the time. A fusion grenade kill fully restores your rift energy when on Starfire Protocol. So if you're in a place where you can do a lot of chain killing, recovery is going to be almost irrelevant for the purposes of rift cooldowns, especially when combined with Classy Restoration, which gives that healing. You're going to want recovery when Classy Restoration is gone though, and in my experience, recovery was still a good thing to have, even with Classy Restoration. So where does that leave discipline? I'm indecisive. You can start the combo back up with a grenade kill, but you can also do it with an Empowering Rift and a little bit of weapon damage. Technically, you can get away with barely any discipline at all, since 95 to 99% of your grenade energy will be generated solely through damage done while standing in an Empowering Rift. So outside of recovery and discipline, I want to say stack strength, but we'll be getting our melee back quickly through Heat Rises and getting kills in the air. Again, just spam jump while you're killing things, and you're going to get your melee back very fast. This leaves mobility, intellect, and resilience as the final stats, and I'm going to say a mix of intellect and resilience is the easy call, maybe pushing a little bit more towards resilience. We're not going to be particularly mobile, or rather we don't need to be because we're going to be standing in a rift. Well of Radiance, still plenty viable, and yes, it does count as an Empowering Rift for Starfire Protocol. So using our Well as a giant, longer duration rift is advised. Resilience, on the other hand, with its new buff, is a worthy stat to dump extra points into, especially when we start living in a world without Classy Restoration. Although even with Classy Restoration, you do still need to play a little carefully. You're not immortal like a Titan is. Fragments. We have 4 slots to work with. I'm pretty torn here, and I think the fragments are flexible based on what your current objective is. Originally, I had Ashes, more Scorch stacks applied, Blistering, Ignite kills give grenade energy, Searing, killing scorched targets gives melee energy, and it gives 10 recovery base, and Singeing, class ability, recharging faster when you scorch stuff. And I think this is a pretty good starting point. It's very safe, but you have a lot of flexibility, and I think I'm going to make some changes. Searing is probably the first one I would rotate out for something else, as we're aiming to get melee energy back via Heat Rises. You could swap that out for Ember of Char, but I feel Ignition procs will result in anything near the explosion to die, and thus not actually get any scorched stacks at all, at least in lower and mid-level content. In higher tiers like Master, stuff is not going to die as easily, which makes Ember of Char a lot better. Solace is an easy one to pick up for Classy Restoration, but once that's gone, we're going to need something else. Eruption is also a pretty easy pick, bigger ignitions, and we are going to be igniting boss targets quite frequently. Again, in higher level content, this is going to pay out really well, especially if you stun a champion, just chuck a couple grenades at it, which procs ignite, and then it just murders and or scorches everything around it. You can just kill stuff while you're killing a boss or a champion. You don't even need to acknowledge trash mobs. They just kind of die in the background. Singeing is for those times where you happen to run out of rift energy and you just go around snapping your fingers until you get your rift back. The higher tier content you're in, the more I would lean towards boosting ignite potential. Being able to just AoE groups of enemies that are, for example, next to champions is really strong. Whereas in lower tier stuff, a lot of things are going to die to one grenade and you're not going to get ignites to happen that often. What about mods? We got charged with light ideas, we got elemental well ideas. What can we do? Explosive well maker seems like a not half bad idea. Rapid explosive damage kills make a well. But we can get a similar effect with elemental ordnance for the same cost, no elemental armor requirements, and no rapid killing needed. Font of Might, always good if you have a solar gun. Well of Life, it's fine, but when Classy Restoration is around, it's just kind of sad. When Classy is not here though, yes, I would definitely equip Well of Life for backup healing. You're going to want anything that you can get. If you are going to run Well of Ordnance, I would throw on Seeking Wells for some convenience, but it's not really required. You could also just go full into Elemental Ordnance stacking with Bountiful Wells and just make a bajillion wells on kill. Not really the most exciting, but it's going to give you a ton of energy to top you and your teammates up, which I thought was nice for those in-between combat moments. I do think that considering how easy it is to blend Charge with Light and Elemental Wells together with Elemental Charge, that you should try to combine the two. So, like Elemental Ordnance and Elemental Charge, you make wells, they count as Charge with Light. You know, I don't think we need to get too fancy here. Throw on Firepower, get yourself that much closer to another grenade, you know, screw it. We also have a play with Energy Converter, which will accelerate our super gains until about 50% super, and then it doesn't work anymore. More supers means more giant rifts for us to throw grenades in. Throw a grenade, you grab a couple of wells, you get charged with light, you throw another grenade, you get a bunch of super energy, rinse, repeat, until we can't benefit from this effect anymore. Nothing else really gets me that jazzed up at all, though. We want grenades, we want as many as possible, so whatever you want to do to just stack the most amount of grenade energy, nothing wrong with that. It's not very exciting, but this isn't supposed to be the exciting part of the build. Starfire Protocol is kind of handling a lot of the excitement. Outside of those mods, I just like to leave things open because it all depends on what you're doing, what weapons you have equipped. Leave space for a scavenger mod, leave space for champion mods. If you don't need champion mods, just sort of fill in the blanks with whatever makes sense. You want to do reloaders, you want to do impact induction or something like that if you're wearing arc or solar, whichever one it is. Helm, finders are fine. Orbs of power are fine too, but the bulk of your damage is coming from grenades, not weapon kills. Chest is all about resistances, so just leave that alone, and class item is going to be tied up with Classy Restoration and probably a stat mod or some other utility mod. Okay, so why do I like this build? This is one of very few builds that I've ever seen and I've ever played with that I wanted to bring into high-level content and actually had a stupid amount of success with. Dungeon, raids, master content, doesn't matter. There have been a lot of other builds that I've tried that, you know, they sort of work in a high-level environment. Your teammates need to do a little bit of carrying, but it sort of works. But this build, you do the carrying. You don't need specific weapons, although we'll talk about that in a moment. You're purely ability driven. The times you do need to shoot, it doesn't matter what gun you're on. You just need to shoot something with something. It's brilliant. This build is so strong, and I absolutely loved it. We get grenades from dealing weapon damage while in an empowered rift. Throw 2 grenades, shoot gun, throw another grenade, seems fine. What's better than shooting 1 gun? Shooting 2 guns at the same time. Witherhoard, yet again, finds another way to stay locked into the weapon meta, and you can blow the dust off of Anarchy because it's time to bring it back out here too if you want. Partly because I think it's bugged as of this video and it's doing a bit more damage than is probably intended. but only sometimes. I'm not really sure what's going on with it right now, but yeah. Grenade. Pop some Anarchy, pop some Witherhoard. You're doing damage while you're doing damage, which means more grenades, which means more double explosions, which means more ignites, which is more damage. You get to deal single target damage and damage that will morph into AoE damage at the same time. You do boss damage and you get to clear out trash mobs at the same time. What else is there to say? I have more to say. All of this footage is from the Master Nightfall when I'm 20 levels underneath. Not quite GM, but 20 levels is a lot. Look at what's happening to these champions, to these enemies. They're just melting. They're getting destroyed. Most of the time, I don't even have Anarchy out there. I'm just doing a couple of bursts from my pulse rifle, and that's still giving me more energy than I'll need for any one target. I ran this strike with 2 people on this build. It was a massacre. I cannot wait to see it with 3 people. Multiple people running the build just allows for even more mayhem to occur. Just make sure you're constantly dropping your Rift to proc Classy Restoration. A warning though, I think there's some sort of internal cooldown on Classy Restoration, so sometimes you'll drop a Rift and get nothing, but you should still try to use your Rift whenever possible. Just keep tabs on your health and your buffs. Like I said earlier, you're not immortal like a Titan in this build, and it is very easy to lose track of when you are and are not regenerating your health. I experimented with this build in the dungeon for a solo completion, and it wasn't as good as I was maybe hoping for, but I was also trying to compare it to the Titan build that I was using, and the Titan build might as well be the closest thing to cheating while not actually cheating, so it's probably not a fair comparison. We're going to cover this build's effectiveness in my dungeon video though. I don't have an exotic section here because the entire build is based on Starfire Protocol. Without it, this build is not the Starfire Protocol build, it's just something else. But really quickly though, for those of you who were unaware of the Sun Bracers build, it's where you equip Sun Bracers, shocker, I know, and just stay in the sky all day killing things with your melee to proc Sun Bracers, which gives you infinite solar grenades for 5 seconds, and then killing stuff while you're in the air with heat rises gives melee energy, so you essentially just chain this back and forth as you murder everything in the sky without ever needing to really shoot your gun. This is not as much of a GM or master build though. Putting yourself in the air for everyone to see, usually not the best idea, but this is more of a casual content build. You know, your seasonal activities, your lower end strikes, etc, etc. And then we have Rain of Fire, which is a new Warlock exotic that boosts your effectiveness with fusions and linear fusions. Naturally, very easy to gravitate to Vex Mythoclast and keep yourself nearly permanently radiant. Icarus Dash also gets you free reloads, although you can probably live without this if you're not a big Icarus Dash user. When it comes to Season of the Haunted, Rays of Precision is likely to be in your class item, maybe Solar Fulmination if that's working properly. And then you'll build around Ignite effects in your subclass with stuff like Ember of Eruption, making you adept at clearing out tons of enemies, all while constantly radiant, while using one of the best guns in the game. Pretty nice. So there you go, Warlocks, something that isn't Sun Bracers. I have been having so much more fun with this build than I originally thought I was going to. It's really fun to play, it's super active, and I highly suggest giving it a try. The single target damage is super strong, the ad clear potential is through the roof, it is so well rounded. Please try this out this season. Run it in Masters, run it in GMs. This is some of the most fun I've had playing a Warlock ever. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.